The asymmetrical flip is a classic hairstyle. It was worn by Lana Turner, Marilyn Monroe, and many other Hollywood stars. It has a vintage look to it now, and the same roller set can be used to set with hot rollers or with Velcro rollers. The asymmetrical flip starts off with a pivot bang. You can use 3 rollers for a pivot bang when you're doing long hair, or you can use 4. If you use 4, it's a good idea to use 2 small rollers in the middle with long hair, and especially when you're using this large diameter of roller. So once you have your pivot bang in, and you can refer to the video on how to make a pivot bang, I just want to point out that this roller, it's very important that it is positioned half base. All of these rollers are half base, but this one you want this square straight up line to happen in the comb out. So in order for that to happen, you have to make sure this roller is not on base but half base. Of course, we're following the rules of pivoting, clipping at the back, and the last roller clipped at the point. Once you've got your pivot bang in place, the rest of the set is really quite easy. We go right from the edge of our last roller in the pivot, and we go straight up towards the center panel of the head and just curve. In here, we place an on-base roller. You will have a little bit of drag here. That drag needs to be smooth, and that is to direct the hair back, and in our comb out you're going to see how this hair sweeps back and away from the face, almost like a push behind the ear romantic look. Once you've got that roller in, your next roller is just on base rollers. Just down the center panel, you just go on base until you reach the occipital bone. Once you reach the occipital bone, we split this, but do try to bricklayer it a little bit, and we angle these rollers so that the hair is going to flow onto the shoulders. I like to remain clipping on my dominant side when you're clipping all the rollers. Once we're done that, we go to the side and we just carve out a section, a curved section to behind the ear. From the top behind this last roller curved to behind the ear. The sectioning for this roller will be in the contract. So you can have a look at all the sectioning available in the contract. So we just place our on-base rollers, and then we switch to our half-base rollers, and you can see the curve that that has. So this hair flows naturally forward around and sits on the shoulder line. This is a nice style to do on hair that is just about medium length, sitting at the shoulder. Remember, short hair is above the shoulder, medium length sits at the shoulder, and anything past the shoulder is considered long hair. So now when we get to the other side, all we need to do is carve out behind the ear. So we leave this front panel. Just going to make that a little bit narrower. This front panel, we're going to put some pin curls in. Once we've done that, now we can target part to our finger, and we're just going to add our rollers. So this is pretty basic. We're just adding our rollers. We want them to be on base, and then switch to the half base. Now when you're rolling long hair, you can also, just to be a little bit quicker, you can also start rolling in the middle, and especially if you're doing this roller set with hot rollers or Velcro rollers, you can start rolling in the middle and bring this hair around, but do make sure your ends are smooth, and this saves you a little bit of time. As long as your ends stay smooth. So now I'm going to switch to charcoal, because once I've got to the occipital bone, I'm just going to want that hair to tuck in a little bit more. And the charcoal roller, being a size smaller, is going to help us to do that. Also down here, you can use a long roller, and you can also use a short roller if you need. It depends on the mannequin, the client, how much space you have there. So a short or long is acceptable. Okay, so there we have our curve. Now on this side, we're going to put pin curls. I always leave those for last, because sometimes when you're moving the head around, they fall out, because they are kind of like a directional barrel pin curl. So they're quite heavy. So I'm going to flip to the other side, which I had already pre-done, because again, it's just simply carving out the front, the hair behind the ear, and then using your horizontal lines and just following the curve of the head. And we have on base, and then we switch to half base with our charcoal size, our next size down. So when we get to here, now we're going to put in some rollers at a pivot. So to do that, we need to make sure that we have our pivot right. So I always like to go near the top of the eyebrow on the client, just diagonal up. And then this will be a slight diagonal down. And that's going to give us our 3 sections. And in there, we're going to put rollers. Now, sometimes on some clients, this is a smaller section, depending on the size of the client's head or depending on the size of the mannequin you're using. So if that's the case, you can use your short rollers, or you can use your long rollers. It's up to you. See how much space you have in there and pick accordingly. So I'm going to start with an on base, and then I'm going to go to a half base, and then last an off base. What this curve does is gives us a nice curve, but it's not a tuck behind the ear curve like the other side is going to be. The other side is going to go back, and that's why it's called the asymmetrical flip, because one side is different than the other. One side goes back further. Now in here, you can also use a short roller if you find that the two push each other out of the way too much. And I think I am going to use a short roller, because I am going to get this one pushed out of the way. So this is my half base, so I'm just holding out at 90. I'm going to switch to a short so I don't have a lot of movement on that first roller. It's being a little difficult. Hoping you can still see what I'm doing. And we're going to clip from the back still. And just let that hair drag back a little bit. And then our last one, we can go back to long. And again, if you need 3 short ones in there, just put the 3 short in. And because this is a pivot, where do we clip? At the point. When you clip at the point, make sure that you're weaving that clip through the hair so you don't get a clip mark. So there we see our movement. Some loose hairs there. We see our movement going towards the face, and it's a close movement, close to the face. Now on the other side, what's making it the asymmetrical flip, we are going to put our pin curls, go back and put our pin curls in. So sometimes it's nice just to angle the client's head, just ask them to tilt their head a little bit. And we're going to divide from the point, so right along the hairline, the edge of the hairline, on a diagonal up. And our first pin curl is going to sweep up, and it's going to come back a directional, so we want to see that stem up sweep. Same as this little roller that we started with, we want to see that up sweep. And we want it to match the diameter of this roller. So we're going to determine the size of our circle, tuck our ends in, and roll up, and just line it up exactly with that roller. Sometimes I even like to clip it right to that roller, and then it just anchors it a little bit better. This one is going to match up to this roller. So again, we're still having to go diagonal up with our stem, ribbon that hair, determine the size, and roll this up and have it match this roller. And again, if you would like, for added security, just clip right to that roller. So that's the asymmetrical flip. So remember, done on medium to shoulder, like shoulder length hair. Sometimes it can be a little longer, as this mannequin is. We start off with the pivot bang. We have a small triangle in this section here with one on base roller. We have rollers down the back, center panel, and then they split off so that the hair flows onto the shoulders nicely, and we use a size smaller. Then we do our side panels, just hair down, just horizontal sectioning, and then we do our pivot in the front on one side, and we do our directional barrel type pin curls on the other side. And that's the asymmetrical flip. Beautiful classic set.